At the airport, the arrivals hall was loud with rolling suitcases and the murmur of 100 reunions. I stood near the sliding doors with a bouquet of white daisies wilting slightly in my hand, watching the screen overhead count down the minutes until her flight would land. My heart was pounding the way it does when you haven't seen someone you love in far too long. And when she finally walked through those doors, tired eyes lighting up the second she saw me, she dropped everything and whispered, "I missed you." For one perfect second, the whole world went quiet. And then, without a word, another man reached down, picked up her bag, and started walking away with it like he had every right to. What happened next would change the way I understood love, trust, and the quiet kindness that holds people together, even when life tries to pull them apart. Before we continue this story, if you believe in the power of small acts of kindness, hit that subscribe button and tap the like icon so more stories like this can reach people who need them. And please, leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. It truly means the world to us. This is Kindness Hub, a place where we believe that even in a world that feels rushed and disconnected, kindness still finds a way to shine through. Now, let's get back to the story. My name is Daniel, and my wife's name is Claire. We had been married for 6 years, and for the last 3 weeks, she had been away caring for her aging mother in another state after a bad fall. It was the longest we had ever been apart, and I had counted down the days like a kid waiting for Christmas morning. I planned every detail of her homecoming. I picked her favorite flowers. I even wore the blue shirt she once told me made my eyes look brighter. I wanted this moment to be perfect. When she walked out from baggage claim, dragging a suitcase that looked far too heavy for her exhausted frame, I felt my chest tighten with love and relief. She saw me, and her face broke into the kind of smile that makes you forget every hard day that came before it. She rushed forward, dropped her bag, and wrapped her arms around me. "I missed you," she said softly into my shoulder, and I held her like I never wanted to let go. That was when I noticed a man. He was maybe in his 60s, wearing a faded gray jacket and worn-out sneakers, with a kind but tired face. Without asking, he bent down, picked up Claire's suitcase, and began wheeling it toward the parking area. My first instinct, if I'm honest, was suspicion. Who was this stranger touching my wife's belongings the moment she landed? I called out, more sharply than I intended, "Excuse me, sir, that's not your bag." The man turned around, startled, and then looked down at the suitcase in his hand as if seeing it for the first time. His eyes widened with embarrassment. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "My wife just landed too, and her bag looks almost exactly like this one. I wasn't even thinking. I just saw the tag color and grabbed it out of habit. Please forgive me." I felt my irritation soften as I watched the man's hands tremble slightly around the handle. There was something in his eyes, not carelessness, but exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying a burden much heavier than luggage. Claire, ever gentle, stepped forward before I could say another word. "It's okay," she said with a warm smile. "Easy mistake to make. Is your wife all right?" The man's shoulders dropped, and for a moment, it looked like he might cry right there in the middle of the terminal. "She's been sick," he admitted quietly. "Really sick. This trip was for a treatment. We couldn't get back home. I've barely slept in days. Worried about her, worried about the bills, worried about everything." His voice cracked on the last word, and he looked down, ashamed of showing so much in front of strangers. Something in that moment shifted the entire evening for us. Claire, who had just traveled for hours and was clearly worn out herself, didn't hesitate. She reached out and gently touched his arm. "You don't have to apologize for being human," she said. "Let's help you find your wife. Which gate did she come from?" The man, whose name we later learned was Walter, pointed toward a bench near gate 14, where a frail woman sat wrapped in a thin cardigan, looking lost and uncertain in the crowd. We walked with him, Claire on one side, me pulling both suitcases now, an unexpected trio brought together by a simple mix-up. When we reached the woman, her face lit up at the sight of Walter, though her eyes were clouded with pain and worry. Claire knelt beside her without a second thought, the way she always does when someone needs comfort more than answers. She asked about her treatment, about how she was feeling, about whether they had a way to get to their hotel. It turned out they didn't have a car, and their rideshare had been delayed for over an hour due to a mix-up with the app. Without even glancing at me for permission, though she knew I would agree, Claire said, "We'll drive you. It's no trouble at all." I watched my wife in that moment and remembered exactly why I fell in love with her all those years ago. She had just spent 3 exhausting weeks caring for her own mother, running on little sleep and even less comfort, and yet here she was, offering warmth to 2 strangers without a second thought. The drive to their hotel took nearly 40 minutes, but didn't feel long at all. Walter told us about how he and his wife, Margaret, had been married for 38 years, how they had raised 3 children together, and how nothing prepared him for watching the person he loved most grow weaker each day. Margaret, despite her illness, laughed softly at old memories, teasing Walter about how he always got lost, even after decades of marriage. When we pulled up to their hotel, Walter turned to us with tears in his eyes. "You didn't have to do any of this," he said. "You don't even know us." Claire simply smiled and said, "Kindness doesn't need a reason. It just needs a moment." Before we left, Daniel, that's me, quietly slipped enough cash into Walter's hand to cover a few nights of meals, waving off his protests. It wasn't about the money. It was about making sure 2 tired, frightened people knew someone cared. Weeks later, we received a letter in the mail. Margaret's treatment had gone well, and she was recovering steadily. Walter wrote that the small kindness we showed that night had given them both hope during one of the darkest chapters of their lives. He said it reminded them that even strangers can become family in an instant, if only we let our hearts stay open. Looking back, that mix-up at the airport wasn't really a mistake at all. It was an invitation, one that reminded Claire and me that love isn't only meant to be kept between 2 people. It's meant to ripple outward, touching lives we never expected to cross paths with. Sometimes the universe hands us a small inconvenience, a wrong suitcase, a delayed flight, a tired stranger, just to see if we'll respond with patience instead of judgment, with compassion instead of suspicion. So the next time someone accidentally bumps into your plans, disrupts your perfect moment, or asks for a little more of your time than you expected to give, remember Walter and Margaret. Remember that a 5-minute detour can change someone's entire week, sometimes their entire life. Kindness costs us nothing but a little patience, yet can give someone everything they need to keep going. If this story touched your heart, even a little, don't let that feeling fade away. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that goodness still exists in this world. Like this video, subscribe to Kindness Hub, and tell us in the comments about a time a stranger's kindness changed your day. Because in the end, we are all just travelers passing through the same airport of life, carrying our own heavy bags, hoping someone will be kind enough to help us carry the load.